Tengai Makyou: The Apocalypse 4 is the best RPG on the Sega Saturn. That may seem like a bold claim for a console that has some heavy hitters like Dragon Force, Magic Knight Rayearth, and Panzer Dragoon Saga, but it's a statement I feel pretty confident in making. Let's take a closer look at what makes this game so enjoyable. The story begins in New Orleans, or
New Orleans,
as the game calls it. Rising and his friends decide to visit a mansion on the hill after Dave shows them a photo of a ghost from it. They eventually make it down to the house's basement and discover the ghost there. Everyone gets freaked out and drops their candle on the floor while running away, which ends up burning the house down. The group then bumps into Rising Sensei, Red Bear, as they are fleeing, who leads them to safety at the Shrine of Eden. However, Sam got left behind during the chaos. Red Bear and Rising go to look for him, only to discover that he has been possessed by the same ghostly figure they saw earlier, which releases demons all over America. Now, this is not the America you and I are used to, but rather a fictional parody of America in 1899. Obviously, it's not historically accurate, as you'll encounter things like televisions, J-pop stars, giant robots, and more. The geography is a little weird as well, as you'll be visiting places like Portland, Montana, and Atlanta, Florida. Even though the game features a lot of humor and wackiness, it can also be very serious at times. Death plays a central role in the game's plot, and you will deal with people close to you dying several times throughout the adventure. The plot is enhanced by a wonderful cast of playable characters. There's the Native American warrior Yuno, who thinks she has the mark of the devil on her, the samurai Zengo, who always seems to leave at the worst possible times, the Jamaican bobsledder Bob, and many others that will come and go from your party just like one of the Grandia games. There's also some very entertaining villains and NPCs. This is one of the better looking RPGs of the 32-bit era, as it is almost entirely 2D, which is what the Sega Saturn does best. All the sprites in the game look wonderful, and the towns and dungeons look great as well, with nice little details scattered about. In the mansion at the start of the game, you'll notice this great lighting effect as you're walking through the basement, and you will also see some transparencies, which is something the Saturn usually struggles with. Hudson Soft did a fantastic job with the hardware. The best and worst feature of Apocalypse 4 is its combat. The first obvious thing you notice is the stunning hand-drawn art and battle animations. Even though there aren't a ton of frames of animation for normal enemies, it is still really neat to see in motion while the monsters take a swing at you. And when I say the battle system is also the worst part, I don't mean that it's bad. In fact, it plays very much like a Dragon Quest title. It's just a bit on the easy side. Most normal enemies can be defeated by the press A to win tactic. Bosses are a bit tougher, but nothing too challenging until very late in the game. One important thing to note about magic is that everyone has access to the same spells, and they all draw from the same pool of magic points, which refill after every battle. Techniques are unique to each character though. A really nice feature of combat that you acquire on Disc 2 is the ability to use combination techniques with two party members. Developing your characters plays out a little bit differently from other RPGs. While you do gain experience and level up like other games, your characters will not learn new spells or techniques this way. You learn new magic and raise your overall magic points by visiting Indian sages. Techniques are learned after key points in the story. Something interesting I stumbled upon during my playthrough was that Tengai Makyou does not store the entire world map's data on both discs like other games of the era. If you make it to Disc 2 and decide that you'd like to revisit Montana again, there will be a changed disc prompt on the screen. There really isn't much reason to revisit old areas though, unless you missed out on a spell or forgot to get a reward from the Hunters Guild. I usually don't mention the controls in an RPG, but the ones in this game are a little odd. You would expect to hold the B button to run and the start button to bring up the menu, but this is reversed. Well, kind of. You don't actually hold the start button to make your character run, pressing the button switches between walk and run mode. While these controls aren't bad, they did take a while to get used to.
そうだ、お前らもだいぶ分かってきたようだな。それが子供本来の素直な感情だ。さあバイクに乗れ。連れて行ってやろう。自由の国ポートランドへ。
Tengai Makyou also excels in the audio department. There is a ton of voice acting throughout the game, and it is all done very well. The soundtrack, which was composed by Toshiyuki Sasagawa, is also outstanding. There wasn't a bad piece of music in the entire game, and a few of the tunes were reminiscent of something from Lunar or a classic Final Fantasy. Some of my favorites were the 12 Apostles Battle and We Want Candy. There are two issues you'll have to deal with to enjoy this game. The first, which you should have noticed right away, is that the game is in Japanese. A lot of people see games with Japanese text and immediately back up, but this is one time where I really encourage non-Japanese players to push themselves through the game. If you need help on where to go, there is a simple guide over on GameFAQs. There is also a complete Legends of Localization live translation here on YouTube if you want to fully understand the story. It may seem like a lot of extra work for an RPG, but totally worth it in my opinion. The second problem is that the game cannot be played on a North American Saturn. Well, you can play it, but you'll be in for a nasty surprise when you make it to the end of Disc 1 and realize that there is no way to continue. And no, the action replay will not help you here. If you don't own a Japanese Saturn, you can also check out the PSP port of the game, which will play fine since the PSP is region-free. Tengai Makyou The Apocalypse 4 is a fantastic game that I feel every RPG fan should play. The great characters, wacky humor, outstanding voice acting and music, and gorgeous battle graphics make this a hard game to put down. The great thing about this RPG is that you can typically score a copy on eBay for only 15 or 20 bucks. If you would rather have it on a handheld, you can find the PSP version for about $50, which is pricier, but still cheaper than the cost of a Japanese Saturn and the game. Play it any way you can, as this is one of the best RPGs of the 5th generation. And that will do it for this one. As always, I want to thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you next time.
やめてよね。こんな痛いけな乙女に